There's one additional bit of movement I'd like to add to the particles. At the moment, the particles born on the right side of the torch are pretty much staying on the right side of the torch and not moving over to the left, and same thing goes for the particles on the left side. If I want to have a more ingrained effect where the particles can intertwine with one another a bit more freely, that will give me a bit more movement to the flow of the flame. To do it, I'm going to need to build an extra branch in my add forces compound. The way to do this is to take the particle position and multiply its x and z positions, so its side to side and back and forth movement, by a negative value to get them to move in the opposite direction. So I can copy and paste the get particle position and multiply it by a vector value rather than multiplying it by a scalar value, which would just amplify the point position. If I plug the particle position into a multiply and specify the x and z values as negative, not by much. If we move them too much, the particles are just going to shoot way off onto the opposite side of the screen. If we just move them by a small amount, without affecting our y-axis at all, we can move the particles this way and then multiply them over their age so that as they get older, they move less and less horizontally and back and forth. So to move the particles over time, we're going to want to get an age percentage compound and run that through a function curve. Our percentage is based on a factor of 0 to 100. So what we're actually going to do here is set it so that particles that are born have a greater strength than particles at the end of their life. So we just need to reverse these curves, and of course I can boost the values higher than their defaults of 1 and 0. So if we just take our defaults and reverse them, and I also want to have the particles have absolutely no movement, not at the end of their life, but just a little bit before the end of their life. So as the particles reach about 72% of their lifetime, they stop or they cease moving back and forth so much, or intertwining positions or interchanging positions. So I'm going to take the result of my particle position multiplied by a negative value on x and z and use a multiply by scalar, if I just copy and paste this one here, to pull the effect together. I'll output the result into one of the inputs on my add forces compound. So now you'll notice we get far more of a slinky behavior to the particles. If I amplify the multiply factor, you'll notice that the particles move around a little more. If you don't see the intensity with which we intended these particles to move, it can be controlled through the function curve. If I take the start position of the function curve and I amplify it, you'll notice that we do get more movement from the particles. So here we get more swelling. And if we increase the values even more, we get even more movement. Okay, so I'm starting to like the movement of my particle system. I might want to take the multiply factor and maybe just reduce it by a little bit. I'll move it down to, say, negative 0.1. Do the same thing here. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. I think I can actually go with that. That's actually very close. I'm getting these nice chunks, nice separations. This is looking more and more like a flame effect.